We're going to look at the resurrection narrative, Luke chapter 24, with the help of Byrne and his text, The Hospitality of God. All right, so when we open up here in chapter 24, we have some of the holy women who are going to the tomb to help prepare the body for burial. This was the Jewish practice. You put the body in the tomb, then you prepare it, and then you do the final burial. The body of Jesus wasn't there, but two men in dazzling garments, which we could call angels and understand correctly as angels, they tell them that Jesus has risen from the dead. And they also say, remember what he said to you, right? Again, here, the apostles, disciples, they're not getting it yet. Jesus was explaining to them during his incarnation how he was actually the Messiah and actually fulfilling what the prophets had said the Messiah would go through. But because it wasn't the way they expected to happen or wanted it to happen, they didn't get it. But these holy women, they remember his words, right? And they return and they tell their experience. They share their experience with the apostles. And the apostles, they don't believe it. So they come and they tell them, and they said, these men in glorious white clothes, these messengers of God, they told us they were risen, and they remembered his words. So you can see it, like it's making sense to them. You can tell them that they're believing here. And so Luke, again, is putting the women in the forefront of the church, saying, hey, these are the first believers. They, again, are getting it before the men. But the male disciples here, they don't believe him. Except for Peter. Peter gets up and he runs to the tomb. And he went home amazed at what has happened. So we can tell he is also open to the resurrection of Jesus, as shared by the angels. So Peter, again, is set up here as the model of leadership in the church. And notice he is not, it's not due to his great character or his spiritual piety or prowess. When push came to shove, he denied Christ. But like the son and the prodigal son, he's willing to go back and try again. He's excited about the possibility of the risen Christ because this would give him another chance, right? His betrayal of Jesus or denial of Jesus would not be the last word. He's going to try again, just like the son and the prodigal son. He's not going back because he thinks he deserves his father's help. He's going back because he understands the father's generosity, that the father would forgive him, and that the father wants to release him because he loves him from the bad life and give him a new and better life, right? And so now the story cuts to another group of disciples who are fleeing Jerusalem. They're getting the heck out of there. They don't want to be wrapped up in what happened to Jesus. They don't want to get crucified themselves. And so remember, Jerusalem is where all this revelation happens, where the fulfillment of the messianic prophecies comes to pass. And they're going the opposite way. They're getting out of there. And as they're walking, Jesus himself draws up near, starts walking with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. Now, the way it says the eyes were prevented in English and the original Greek makes it seem like it is an act of God. And they have a conversation with this stranger, this visitor, right, who is actually Jesus, but they don't see it yet. And he says, oh, why are you guys so sad? What's wrong? And one of them says to you, are you the only person, the only visitor in Jerusalem? The only visitor to Jerusalem? And you get this irony here, right? Jesus, the visitor, the one who has come from heaven, the divine who has come, to earth, right? To share the generosity of the host, the ultimate host, God, right? The one who created and sustains all of this. So again, it's that irony of the incarnate Jesus as visitor and host. And the guy says, "What kind of things?" They say, "What kind of things have taken place? What are you talking about?" And they explain to him their view of what happened. Right? There was this guy Jesus, and we thought he was going to be the one to redeem Israel. We thought he was going to be the Messiah. He was this great prophet, and we were hoping that he would be the Messiah. He would be the one to redeem Israel. Now, notice they have the messianic hope, but because it happened in an unexpected way, they didn't get it. But they are open to the fact that some of the women of the group, when they didn't find his body, they had a vision from these angels. And notice that, they're just calling it a vision here. They're not like saying, hey, was this really a legit experience? Are they just seeing things? Who announced that he was alive. So they're not totally closed off here. And then the stranger, the visitor, says, don't you get it? And he goes through the Old Testament scriptures. He goes through this passage about the Son of Man. He goes through Isaiah's suffering servant, right? And he shows us all these things, shows them all these things that said that the Messiah would suffer like that and die and be resurrected. And so what is the passage saying, right? The passage is reminding us that God's saving action is present in our lives right now. The promise has been fulfilled. Salvation is here among us. However, we might be missing it because it's not the way we expected it to happen, right? I mean, that's just a clear example of that of that theme in the Gospels here. They're really laying it out. Luke's really laying it out for us clearly. And so now they're going to start getting hospitable, right? He was hospitable with them when he shared the revelation with them, when he shared his wisdom and his knowledge with them, his understanding with them. And now they're going to invite him to come eat. And again, he's the guest, he's the visitor, and he's going to flip it again, right? Because he's going to play the host. Now, first of all, you have this guy who understands everything, and he's going to sit down with these people who didn't understand anything. So it's that kind of that equality in Luke, right? We're not dividing people up on their deservedness, right? Because that's not the important thing. The important thing is to share in the loving generosity of God. And that loving generosity is just open to everyone. And so just like he did in his incarnate life, the risen Christ sits down at a table with everybody, right? In this case, these two disciples. And he took the bread and he blessed it and he broke it. So now he is going to act like the host by breaking the bread. And at that moment, the breaking the bread, their eyes are open and they recognize him, but he vanishes from sight. So the second they're like, wow, it's Jesus here with us, he disappears. They can't see him anymore. So what just happened? Well, this is what we reenact and relive when we have our Catholic liturgies called the Mass, right? First thing we have is the liturgy of the Word, in which Scripture is read and explained, and that's what Jesus did on the road. Then we have the liturgy of the Eucharist, in which we break bread and acknowledge and participate in God's presence among us. Now, when he's gone, we'll see they're not sad, right? When he's gone, they will actually be happy, and they'll run back to Jerusalem to share with the others. Why is that? Well, let's look at Byrne and what he wrote on 208. First of all, he's talking about how the guest becomes host, right? Jesus provides them the hospitality of God. At the moment of recognition, they're not sad. It does not seem to dismay the apostles, right? As you might think, like, oh, he's here, and he's gone. Oh, he's gone again. What happened? No, that's not their experience. They're having a faith experience that they will not have now the physical presence or sight of Jesus. but they understand that he's with them always, right? And this is the age of the Eucharist, right? And so every time we participate in the Eucharist, we remind ourselves, we open ourselves up to that reality of Christ present among us. And if we do this enough and we participate in it enough, we start to see that Christ is always present with us. He's always saving us. And you see their response. When he's gone, now they're joyful. They say, were our hearts not burning within us? Right? They realize, hey, isn't the cause of our joy here with us? And what do? They do a 180 and they run back to Jerusalem. At once they set out. Just like they ran away, now they're going to run back. And when they meet the other disciples and the apostles, they said, the Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon. And they recount what has taken place and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. Right? So now I hope you understand what we're doing in the Eucharistic celebration in the church. Right? We're reliving and opening our eyes to God's presence among us as we gather together. And God's presence among us all time. If we can see it there in the breaking the bread, that's going to open us to seeing it all places and seeing all of our lives as an opportunity to participate in and spread the kingdom of heaven among all people. Right? And that's why sharing is so important in Luke. The community, as you see here, they come to full knowledge. They understand the resurrection event better when individuals share their little previously separate stories. Right? First you had the women, nothing big. People didn't really believe yet. Now you have the road to Emmaus disciples, right? And talk here of Jesus appearing to Simon. So you see there's different individual experiences that are getting their full understanding when the people come together. And that's why we today, as Christians, gather together on the Lord's Day. It's because we only get the benefit of a fuller understanding when we come together and share our experiences. Otherwise, we're just not getting the perspective necessary to understand God's saving presence in our lives. So we're going to see another scene here where